Guys, welcome to this video. We're talking about the stages of production. So our video is targeting to define, and also we're going to be using examples and explain the various stages of production. So let's get started. So in primary production, known as the primary stage, is known as the extraction or harvesting. This stage involves the extraction or harvesting of raw materials directly from the nature. We're talking about this is a kind of stage whereby it's linked to the raw materials, whereby we extraction of raw materials directly from the earth, directly from the earth. That's what we mean by nature. Nature is wanting to provide them. This includes activities like farming, fishing, mining, and forestry. These are all under primary stage because from farming, that's where we get the raw materials. Then from the raw materials, they go through some of the processes that you will be able to look at once they move on various stages. And look at forestry. With forestry, that's when we have even even the logs which are going to be created through forestry. That's when you realize that primary production, this is the first stage of production that you have to know is that its inputs is that the primary inputs are natural resources. They are naturally provided, are God given, such as crops, minerals, water, and timber. The output is in its raw or unprocessed form may include raw materials like grains or timber. So you have to know that when explaining these various stages of production, it's always about using the examples, but that is when it's going to be very, very important because, as you know, this activity, as we are saying, they're directly uh, extracted the resources from the nature. So we have examples like farming, fishing, logging, mining, quarrying. They are all examples of primary stage production. Let's move on. So we have secondary stage known as the manufacturing or the processing. This is the second stage of production. In this stage, raw materials from the primary sectors are processed and transformed into finished goods. So you're looking at the conversion process from those raw materials that you're talking about in the primary production. They're now being processed. They're now being transformed into finished goods. So manufacturing construction activities fall under this category because that's where the processing and the transformation is taking place, so that we have finished products which are going to be ready for consumption. But the goods are going to be ready for consumption in the secondary stage of production, but they have to wait to go to the tertiary sector. That's when they are going to be the service sector. We're going to be looking at that. So looking at the secondary stage, is referred as the manufacturing and processing. That's another way in which you can define secondary stage. Then we look at the inputs. The primary inputs are the raw materials, as you know, which are obtained from the primary stage, because that is the first stage of production, along with the labor and capital. This is the machinery, the tools which are being used to carry out the production process. Then we look at the output. The output consists of manufactured goods such as cars, machinery, processed foods, and other finished goods. This is whereby we have reached a point whereby goods are now ready for consumption. That's when we look at the cars. They are now ready to be driven. At first, we had the issue of having steel, which was the raw material. Then we come to the secondary stage. There now the car is being assembled. Then you're now having a finished car. Even the machineries that are going to be using to produce other outputs. You see, other production. We have a machine playing a pivotal role. We're looking at the output in the products. So you have to look at the commodities, farming, as you saw on the picture, how the transformation process is taking place. Whereby we are looking at the dairy cow there. Then from it we are getting now the dairy milk. Then we are also going to be looking at, also we have wheat, commodity farming being transformed. You see, this is the transformation process that you're talking about, the manufacturing and the processing. Then energy raw materials, how they're going to be used to produce electricity. Look at Wange power station. We are having coal being burned and producing electricity. That's all falling under manufacturing and secondary stage. You see, we are looking at the energy raw material being used to produce electricity. Um, Moving to the tertiary production, known as the service sector. Tertiary sector is the last stage of production. This involves the provision of services rather than tangible goods, which means you are looking at the idea that you are providing services which are not tangible. As you know, goods are tangible, but services are intangible. You see, that's why we are talking about the services are the provision of things which are not tangible. This includes such activities such as retails. We have the retails which are set up. We have also education, we have healthcare, we have in finance, we have entertainment. These are things which fall under the category of tertiary production. It's all about service. So unlike the primary and secondary sector, the inputs here are often more intangible. and include human skills, which means you're looking at the expertise that people have to provide. They are much more intangible, and sometimes even technology itself is something that you cannot touch and say that I've touched technology. No. So output in is also you have to look at the output in a service such as the healthcare services, education, and banking. So these are the things which are the goods which are provided under the service sector, which are very important because education is a key commodity for you to be able to survive. These are all some of the services that are offered in the tertiary production. Look at transport and communication; they all fall under tertiary production. Also look at education and the healthcare subsidization; they all fall under the tertiary sector. So always about service delivery, making sure that the goods reach the final consumer. That's why we're talking about the retail. The idea that we are having the retail playing a pivotal role to make sure that the goods reach the final end consumer of the good. So thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you on the next video. Not really. We have what we call interconnectedness. Interconnectedness. These stages are interdependent. So when you look at the tertiary, this often relies on the production from the secondary, and also look at the secondary. It relies on the on the raw materials from the primary state. That's why we're talking about the interconnectedness. The idea that we are moving from one stage to another, but we can't just go to another stage without going through another stage. That's why we're looking at primary sector is linked to secondary, and the secondary sector is linked to primary. Then moving to tertiary, tertiary is linked to secondary. You see, that's how you have to look at the issue of interconnectedness. Their stages are interdependent. So we're looking also at the idea that in advances in technology and globalization, as you know, globalization is whereby countries become much more integrated. They're now working closer together. That's globalization. So you have led to a lot of much more integration between these stages. For example, we're looking at information technology services, fall under tertiary. Might heavily depend on computer hardware is secondary, and rare minerals are primary. You see how we have looked at the issue of interconnectedness, whereby certain elements are being found in different stages. You see, that's the issue of interconnectedness, and this all coming as a result of having the advancement in technology and globalization, whereby each stage is being involved in the production process. Then we also have to look at economic development. Economies typically transition from being primary agrarians dominated by the primary sector. This is one of the key important point that you have to talk about. That most countries have moved away from just relying on primary production because already we have to move to industrial. That's much more profitable as a country doing industrialization. And also finally to the service-based tertiary sector as they develop. Because as you move from one stage to another, that's when you're adding value on your products. That is the value addition. So understanding this stage is crucial for policymakers, businesses, and economists as they help in analyzing economic structures because they will be able to know that this economic structure that we are using, we have to be much more strong in primary production. This economic sector that we are using, structure that we are using, we have to be strong in tertiary production, we have to be strong in secondary production. So identifying growth opportunities because you know how now the world has become much more like global village whereby every country is striving to make sure that they are relying on research and development whereby they are continuously to advance in terms of how they are moving from their transitional stage of just being offering primary raw materials. They are now saying that we are now doing the secondary, they're also into the tertiary sector. So that's very important because in formulating strategies for sustainable development, because you need to be able to know that we have to protect our natural resources because they are supposed to continue to develop in a sustainable way that future generation that are going to come, they're not going to have a problem in also having a better life in using their valuable resources. So also we have some exercise questions for you. So as a student, you should be able to define the following terms using examples is used in production, primary production, secondary production, tertiary production, and you get your 6 marks. So if you practice, I'll see you on the next video.